President Trump putting other major cities on notice as he takes over the D.C. police force and mobilizes 800 National Guard troops into the nation's capital. The president saying he wants federal agencies to combat crime that he believes is out of control. Let's bring in CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten to break these numbers down for us. So Harry, let's start first with, do D.C. residents actually want this?
No, they hate this whole idea. I think there's some idea out there that Trump's somehow a conquering hero, but he's in fact is welcomed in Washington, D.C. as Eagles fans are Commanders games. What are we talking about here? Well, take a look here. D.C. residents on Trump and local issues. He's too involved. Look at this. 71% say he is too involved. And this, of course, was even before Monday's actions, compared to just 11%. Just 11% who say they want him more involved. In fact, a majority of every single demo tested by the Washington Post in a poll earlier this year found that they believe that he was, in fact, too involved. D.C. residents hate this whole idea of Trump getting involved in local issues.
But how do they feel about crime? Do they agree with the president that this is something that's out of control?
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, right? D.C. residents on the top problem facing D.C., crime, violence, and guns. In 2022, it was 36%. But look at this. It dropped 15 points to 21% earlier this year. I should note that about 50% of D.C. residents do believe that crime is an extremely or very important problem, but even that 50% is down from 65% back in 2024. So D.C. residents, like the crime statistics themselves, suggest that crime is becoming less of an issue in our nation's capital. And at this particular point, just 21% of D.C. residents, in fact, believe that the top problem facing Washington, D.C. is crime, violence, and guns. And that might be part of the reason why D.C. residents, in fact, believe that Trump's getting too involved in local issues and won't exactly like this move.
And what does the data say about President Trump and his relationship to D.C., why he might have feelings about that?
Yeah, a lot of people have been concentrating on the policy of this decision by President Trump, but I think it's also important to point out the politics of this decision and just talk about one reason why Donald Trump might not like Washington, D.C. besides the crime issue. And that is because take a look at all of the counties or the county equivalents nationwide. We're talking over 3,000. Where did Donald Trump do the worst in 2024? Well, he did the worst in Washington, D.C., getting just 6.5% of the vote. The vast majority, 90% plus of D.C. voters went against Donald Trump. Again, I just think it's so important to point out that D.C. residents don't like this move, and they really don't like President Trump. They hate Donald Trump. They hate Republicans. Over and over again, they have voted against Donald Trump, voted against Republicans. And again, on the crime issue that's so important, a smaller and smaller percentage going down, believe it is the top problem in our nation's capital.
All right, interesting to dig into those numbers. Harry, always good to see you.
Nice to see you.
John?
Well, this morning, some of the biggest voices in MAGA media are uniting now around President Trump's unprecedented expansion of federal policing power in Washington, D.C., quickly rallying around the president after just a short time ago. Many of them were speaking out against the Trump administration's handling or fumbling of the Epstein saga. CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter tracking this one for us. And Brian, what are you seeing here?
There were lots of people yesterday saying, hey, is this a distraction? Is Trump trying to distract from the Epstein scandal? Well, here's the better question. Is it working or not? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is working. If this was a distraction, yes, it is succeeding. You do see big MAGA media influencers, people like Mike Cernovich and Alex Jones, very much backing the president with this crime crackdown, even though they've spent much of the summer criticizing Trump and pressing for more information out of the DOJ and the FBI about Epstein. Of course, the Epstein crime's a very different case. This D.C. story, we're talking about a very real issue, as so many commentators have pointed out, a very real concern in Washington, and yet a lot of the commentary is about feelings and fears and perceptions rather than the facts that are at hand. So very much I'm seeing a consolidation, a rallying of support in MAGA media, as some of those commentators and influencers who were critical of Trump earlier this summer, they're very much 100% behind him right now because they want to see a strongman type leader trying to take action in cities.
And Brian, you also have noticed that some of the data that the president is citing is coming from Fox News. I mean, what are you finding here?
Yes, yeah, it's coming straight from Fox in some cases, and this shows exactly how the Fox feedback loop works, where President Trump watched a segment last week on Will Cain's show. He saw graphs, bar charts, data about crime in D.C. versus other cities and other countries, and then Trump held up those exact same charts at that press conference yesterday. Here's a soundbite from Will Cain proving the point from last week.
All right, now, crime in our nation's capital, it's not new. In fact, actually, Washington, D.C. is less safe than some capital cities in third world countries.
The feedback loop is very real in this case. You can tell that President Trump prioritizes pictures and PR. He wants to see action on the streets of D.C., even in tourist areas and other areas where there is not a serious crime problem. And right now he's getting the pictures he wants. You know, local stations are out on the streets taking these pictures, getting these videos of this increased deployment. But I think we've known for a number of years at this point that Trump cares deeply about what he sees on TV, what the television networks are showing his base. And in this case, he wants viewers far from Washington to see that something is being done. This is something we've seen time and time again with President Trump. Not just about saying what he's going to do, but he wants to show it. He wants action. He wants visuals. And I think you cannot understand this story about the crime crackdown without understanding the power of the pictures for him.
Good point. Brian, it's good to see you.
Mayor Bowser is speaking right now. I want to hear what she's saying.
And they are the MPD strategic plan moving forward. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I had the opportunity yesterday and this morning to meet with Mr. Terry Cole, who's the administrator from the DEA, and also Mr. Gadai Stiralto, call him Gaddy, from the U.S. Marshal. He's the director of the U.S. Marshal. And we have been working collaboratively. I think this is going to be a good effort. It's going to be an effort that's supported by both teams, the Metropolitan Police Department as well as our federal partners. As you know, we work daily with them. What we've done at this point is we have provided the team, the administrator, with a strategic plan on how we will provide resources around our city. I think it's something that is doable. We know that we have to get illegal guns off of our street, and if we have this influx or enhanced presence, it's going to make our city even better.
Chief, what's your role in all this?
I am the Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department, and being the Chief of Police, I am certainly the one who champions to ensure that we reduce violent crime across our city. That is why the mayor appointed me to do that job, which is why you've seen the reduction in crime across our city. This effort will only help us enhance and build upon that.
Are you responding? Are you answering to Terry Cole?
I answer to the mayor. I answer to Mayor Muriel Bowser. Let me just say this: let us not have any controversy with that, okay? Because I know people want to build upon and create division. We're here to work together with our federal partners, and that's what we're going to do.
And how are you going to do that? Can you explain what the National Guard is likely to do, what the federal agents are likely to do?
So the federal agents. So the way we would do any operational plan across our city, we would create a plan, we would put our resources together, we will allocate and look at the locations around our city where we believe there are areas of pockets of crime that we would like to address. We also know that there are opportunities for us to build upon our community engagement with our federal partners who work with us every day, and this is the time for us to do that. I won't go into the details and the devils of our operational plan at this point, but you will see Metropolitan Police Department working side by side with our federal partners in order to enforce the efforts that we need around the city.
Can you tell us what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
But does the Attorney General have the authority to implement changes at MPD or just request changes?
The executive order is pretty clear, and so is the law. The president has the authority by virtue of the statute to request services. Our organizational chart, how we do business, how we fund the police, how we make changes, none of that has changed.
Firing.
Yes.
Mayor Bowser, you've had some time to think about it since yesterday. How do you sum up how this has played out, where you didn't know about this before it was announced?
What I'm focused on is the federal surge and how to make the most of the additional officer support that we have. We have the best in the business in MPD and Chief Pamela Smith to lead that effort and to make sure that the men and women who are coming from federal law enforcement are being well used, and that if there's National Guard here, that they're being well used, and all in an effort to drive down crime. So how we got here, or what we think about the circumstances right now, we have more police, and we want to make sure we're using them.
Are you concerned at all that some of the police that are out there are FBI agents who are assigned to offices who are now patrolling the streets at night?
I'm going to rely on the police chief to work with her counterparts to make sure people are being deployed in a useful way.
Could you explain the nature of the relationship between the chief and the administrator during this 30-day period?
It's going to be, she's going to work hand in hand with the people that the president has designated.
Just a couple more.
And Chief, we hear in some other jurisdictions, the National Guard are made up primarily of police and law enforcement. Do we know the makeup of the DC?
I wouldn't be able to say that offhand. I think they come from all backgrounds.
Are there a lot of law enforcement?
There are a number of Metropolitan Police Department and officers from other law enforcement outfits, firefighters, and others who make up our DC National Guard, because that's who makes up our city.
And does the National Guard have the power to make arrests on a day-to-day basis? How does that work?
No, the National Guard is not law enforcement. And so, as the chief said, we regularly, because what we do in our city, work with the National Guard, and we'll do the same, that they will coordinate through the Metropolitan Police Department for any services that they're providing during this time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we just heard from the mayor of Washington, D.C. We heard from the police chief, Pamela Smith, as well. Brooke Pinto is still with us, the D.C. council member. What's your reaction? What do you think?
Well, we are aligned in this government with our mayor, with the council, with the attorney general, with our police chief, that we have to do more to keep district residents safe. Now, I continue to be of the mindset that we should do so through hiring more police officers. I just moved legislation to get it easier to have more officers come in the door and to stay on the force. We have to do it through the federal government actually supervising people on their parole, filling judicial vacancies, filling the $1 billion budget hole that Congress has left us, that has disallowed us to pay our police and firefighters what we want to be paying them. And so there are avenues for intervention and support through the federal government. This is not the appropriate way, but as the mayor said, in the meantime, we are going to stay laser focused on delivering our key responsibility to district residents and visitors, and that's keeping them safe.
Well, do you think residents of Washington, D.C. will feel safer seeing all these National Guard troops walking around the streets of Washington, ordered in by the president?
I think residents of Washington, D.C. should be able to walk down the street in any neighborhood they live in and be safe.
But as you know, there are plenty of neighborhoods here in Washington where they don't necessarily feel safe, especially at night.
I think that's true. And I am the first to say we have to do more when it comes to public safety in Washington, D.C. That's why I've championed all the efforts that I have through Secure D.C., through Peace D.C., through leading the last couple budget cycles to increase the police force size. And I will stay laser focused on those efforts. But having federal law enforcement who's not trained in understanding our neighborhoods and our challenges here locally is not the best use of their resources.
The D.C. Police Union chairman, as you know, says his group agrees with this move by President Trump, and that, quote, every aspect of our criminal justice system in D.C., he says, and I'm quoting him now, is broken. He blamed radical activists on the city council for that. I want you to respond to him.
So I work very closely with our police department. I'm a big supporter of our police department. I think they're the best in the country. And I also do agree that there were some laws that went too far several years ago. And I became the chairwoman of the Council's Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety in 2023. I looked at our entire ecosystem. I worked with the police, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with our courts, with D.C. residents in all 8 wards, and put together this legislative package to fill many of those gaps. And so I'm proud of the progress that we've made leading to this 30-year low of violent crime. But I am also the first to say we have to do more. Reality and safety have to be true for everyone in DC, and we take seriously our responsibility here that we're also the nation's capital. And so you have to be safe whether you've lived here your whole life, you're having an internship on Capitol Hill for the summer, or you're a tourist from anywhere in the world. That is not lost on us, and that's why collaboration with the federal government is important to accomplish those goals.
So important indeed. You make good points. Thanks so much for your service. Thanks so much for joining us, DC Council Member Brooke Pinto. Appreciate it very, very much.